Hello, my name's Clive Lee. I'm Professor of Anatomy in the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland in Dublin, and I've just stepped down having been President of the Anatomical Society for 3 years. I stepped down in December 2016. When did I first come across the Anatomical Society? Well, when I was doing an intercalated degree, I got a scholarship which included a travel grant. And so my travel grant was to the Anatomical Society meeting in Cambridge in 1981. So they were extremely welcoming, which was a great introduction to academic meetings. So I really enjoyed that, and I've stayed in touch with the Society ever since. Is the Society welcoming? Yes, I think it is. It's a relatively small society. It's about 500 members. At most meetings you'll get about 150 to 200 attendees, and we're always delighted to welcome students coming. And in fact, one of our students is coming to his first Society meeting this time on a similar sort of scholarship. Being president is interesting. You end up being chairman of the council, so you're trying to make sure that every part of the society is functioning and that there's some sort of overall vision for the society. So during that period, we did a number of things. We introduced fellowship of the society for more senior members, really to keep them involved. We also have instituted a history of the society, which we hope to publish by the end of 2017. And we got a new coat of arms because we had no logo for a while after we changed our name in 2010. So amidst all of that was the general running of the society, trying to make sure everything runs on time. And it gave me an opportunity to see what all the other members of council do. It gave me opportunities to travel, not just to meetings of council, which tend to be all over Britain and Ireland, but also to the American Association of Anatomists meeting, to the British Association of Clinical Anatomists meetings, and to meet other members of the anatomical community and see how they approach their particular issues. Okay, well, the goal of the book really is to explain where the society came from, why there is an anatomical society, why we think it's necessary to represent our speciality in this way, also to trace the history of our journal, the Journal of Anatomy, and to look at what individual parts of the society are doing these days. So hopefully it'll be interesting for people to see where we've come from, and that usually gives you an idea as to where you might be going next. Well, in starting out in the discipline of anatomy, I think the Society can do a number of things for you. If you're a student, you can come along to the meetings and see what happens and see the depth and breadth of anatomy from teaching through to research. It turns up as a morphological science in most aspects of research, particularly medical research, veterinary research. If you are an academic or an aspiring academic, you may find yourself in an anatomy department, but without formal teaching in anatomy. So together with the American Association of Anatomists, we run the anatomy training program each year, and so you can develop the knowledge and skills to teach anatomy while you're doing your anatomically based research. Okay, so what changes have occurred in anatomy? Well, when I was a student, we used to look at the 4 or 5 or 6 layers of the sole of the foot. Clinically, this never actually occurs in practice, and so it was really rather a lot of mindless detail. Most anatomy departments independently trim this down, but the Society has recently published a paper on the essential anatomy curriculum, which is done with a Delphi process, identifying 156 learning outcomes in gross anatomy which a medical graduate would need to know. I think this has been a great service because we can all look and say, well, this is what we agree should be taught. And when you're dealing with your own medical school, your own College of Surgeons in my case, you can say, well, this is the standard and this is what we ought to be aiming towards. So we've been able to tidy things up in terms of what we think by consensus, by collegiate consensus, is necessary to know for, in this case, a medical graduate. Well, what challenges we might have in the future. We've just had a very interesting lecture by a colleague talking about the fact that most of us don't spend our time looking at specimens anymore. We look at digitized images. So in fact, what we're describing is digitization. That's a challenge. It can be a very powerful tool, but you've got to be careful not to go too far from reality. And so when you're looking at things online, when you're looking at images, you've always got to ask yourself, what is the reality here and what has been manipulated? Sometimes manipulation can inadvertently mislead people. So we oughtn't to lose track of the fact that all our patients, if we're medics, are going to be 3D real people rather than 3D simulations. Okay, so the society was founded in 1887 as the Anatomical Society of Great Britain and Ireland. And in the reforms around 2010, we changed the name to just Anatomical Society, but we lost our logo at the time, which rather looked like the British Lions one with a shamrock and a leek and a rose and a thistle. And that became a problem because every time we organised a meeting, they said, show us your logo, and we didn't have one. So we wondered how we would get a logo, and if you've any experience of this dealing with banks or companies, they can be very variable. So we thought, as we've been around for a while, we might go and see what the College of Arms could do. So as our office is based in London, we went to the College of Arms in London, and we were able to develop a coat of arms with devices on it which are representative of what we do. There really is something for everybody there, from the basic scientist to the vet to the clinician to the dentist. And our motto is ex conformatione usus, which is from form comes function. Now, of course, you can argue that, but it's quite fun to look at it that way. And so it's been a useful device in terms of advertising for the society. It's studentships, it's journal, it's a recognizable thing. And so it's given, I think, a greater sense of identity to the society. Well, I think one of the things that's useful about the society is we spend a lot of time in our own anatomy departments doing our own thing. If you go and meet the neighbours and travel around and see anatomists elsewhere at society meetings, you get to discover whether what you're doing is the same, better or worse than everybody else, and that's very helpful. You discover you're not the only person doing it. And as anatomy departments have tended to get smaller and more isolated, really the society, we hope, is becoming the professional home for anatomists. So there's a mechanism for learning anatomy through the anatomy training program, for example, sharing your research at the meetings, and also developing professionally, becoming a member of the society, becoming a fellow of the society, and that should be helpful to you in progressing your career. So it should be the professional home for anatomists. Okay, anatomy is understanding structure so that you can apply it to function and to malfunction. So if you want to know what's wrong with your patient, you need to know where to look and what's normal and what isn't.